All right, folks, for those of you that are already here, we're going to introduce our next speaker and start the next session. And for those of you that are still drinking coffee and visiting, slowly or quickly head back to our tables. For our butcher demonstration today, we have with us a gentleman who was one of Ontario's finest butchers. Brent won the Ontario Finest Butcher competition in 2019. He is also a member of the Team Canada. And how many of you knew that we have a butchery Team Canada that competes internationally, similar to what you guys are all familiar with regards to Olympics? Bit of background on Brent. He's been butchering for 32 years, started like a lot in a local slaughterhouse, learning the craft at the beginning. And then after a few different positions within the slaughterhouse, he and his wife, Jacqueline, purchased a small butcher shop in 1999, so a little while ago, in the heart of downtown Port Perry. So District 7, for those of you that aren't familiar to where Port Perry is. Brent says that competing in the butchering has given him a newfound love for butchering. Winning the Ontario Finest Butchers Award has to date been the highlight of his career. And it also gave him the place on that on Team Canada for the World Butcher Challenge, which is held annually, Brent, every 3 years.
Yeah.
He competed in Sacramento last September, I believe, 2022. And now they're preparing for the competition in France, in Paris, France, in the spring of 2025. So Brent, welcome. It's a treat to have you here. And I mean, I was overwhelmed with the enthusiasm from both you and the rest of the team, and in terms of wanting to participate and gladly participating in this. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Brent. He's going to cut that lamb into primals, and then he's going to do his magic on taking some cuts of it and making it into very presentable, consumer-ready products. Take it away, Brent.
Thank you. Everybody can hear me fine? We're good? Yeah, excellent. Okay. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Before I start doing anything here, I wish to say a gigantic thank you. Thank you to you guys for creating some of the best lamb the world has to offer. So thank you on behalf of butchers and even chefs. So they probably won't say it, but we won't get into that. Thank you very much, because we can't do what we do without you guys doing what you do. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. This is an absolutely gorgeous piece of local lamb. I love cutting lamb. I love cutting meat of all sorts, but this is probably one of my favorite things by far. The favorite part about what I do is owning a store and being a retail butcher is I am able to be right on the front line with the consumer. When someone comes into my store, I like to present a wonderful meat buying experience. I don't want them to come in and grab something and say, I don't really know what I got. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go home and I'm going to cook for 10 people. If I can have somebody come in, I can engage, I can make them feel comfortable. I can help them pick what they need to make a wonderful dining experience, right up to cooking. Educating my consumer will only make for a happy consumer. So the front line, supporting your small retail butcher shop, and people, even you guys as farmers, having the ability to deal directly with customers, you're going to make them so happy. And when you look at retail as a whole, especially from meat, when I'm dealing with consumers in a high-end butcher shop, quality, consistency, friendly service, price. They've already made the conscious decision to walk into my store and spend money. If I can make them feel comfortable and I can make them happy, of course, I'm going to do my best to give them best value for their dollar, but they will be happy. And more importantly, they'll be returned. Amazing to watch the video today of these guys processing these lambs and going through them all. And in my beginning of the years in an actual slaughterhouse, because I actually did about 10 years of killing, and I understand exactly what they're looking for, holding the back of the lamb, looking for wonderful muscle structure. Although when this is warm, it's very hard to feel the difference between the fat and the wool. But those guys did an amazing job of describing what they were doing. So right here at the beginning, we're going to knock the shoulders off the carcass. And one of the things you'll notice today is that I might be using the handsaw a little bit, but for the most part, everything is going to be done with a knife. The amazing thing about the art of craft butchery is how it's pretty much non-existent. No, I'm okay. No, it'll be done by hand. So we have some gorgeous, nice color on the outside of this lamb. And what I'm doing here and what I should be doing properly is going in between muscles without going through muscles. The ability to find out where they are and how to appropriately go around them all is very, very key. I loved listening to the, yes, go, yeah, absolutely. We're going to go in and do a little bit of grading on this lamb before I get too much further into it. What'd you come up with? That's an 8. Wow. 8 millimeters of tissue. So that's fat and meat together. Fat and meat together. Beautiful. So anyhow, the one of the things about craft butchery, the art of craft butchery in North America is not recognized as a certified trade. So I can go on about that for hours, but I feel that it should be. In New Zealand and Australia, you are required to do a 4-year apprenticeship after your education in order to be considered a full-fledged butcher. And in Germany, in order to be a master butcher, you actually will have a PhD in meat science. The rest of the world really considers butchering to be revered, a little difficult here, sorry, revered on a different level. People shop on the daily as opposed to shopping once a week. They don't have such a thing as a Costco. They don't do their big grocery store things and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to break this lamb down into primal sections. And don't worry, I am wearing chainmail. The rules of competition require that you have to wear this at all times. So we're going to break this lamb into 2 halves once I get down into primal muscles. And the focus about what I'm going to be doing today is the primals, beautiful leg of lamb, and what the difference would be in a retail butcher shop. I would like to turn this into something value added. I can do a whole bunch of different things with this. So what I will do is I will show you the leg of lamb, and then I will show you all the different things that we can do with that leg of lamb. So here we have the middle meat. This is the heart and soul of everything. Absolutely gorgeous. You guys were talking about the kidney fat earlier during the competition. Here's a little bit left inside. I love, from a butchering perspective, seeing the kidney fat left inside the animal. That is absolutely beautiful. Yes, it is not exactly fully marketable, but it leaves a wonderful preservation on the inside of this lamb. And you can see here, you can see this wonderful color, this beautiful bright pink color on the flank. And then right here is the actual tenderloin. So that's the money part. That's the big dollars of the whole lamb. So to keep that beautiful natural preservation on the inside of it, which is a perfect little amount, is literally going to keep the money part valuable. So now we're going to separate our flank from our, what we commonly refer to as the saddle. And just for timing's sake, if you were in a butcher shop and you were doing lambs all day, you'd pretty much be done this by now because time is money. So you got to keep moving real quick. So we're going to just separate the ribs here. Obviously with band saws and butcher shops and such, it would make life a lot easier, but so the World Butcher Challenge. As mentioned earlier, I started competing butchery a number of years ago through Meat and Poultry Ontario. Oops. And I have a complete and total renewed enthusiasm for my craft. And if you can find anything in no matter what you do that brings you joy, it's time and energy well spent. So I've made new friends butchering globally. It has given me a whole new appreciation for everything that everybody else does all around the world. And I absolutely love it. So the World Butcher Challenge it's originated in Australia, New Zealand, and started out as a competition in between those two nations. And then England said, hey, that looks kind of cool. Can we get in on? And then it kind of built up from years to years. And as part of Ontario's Finest Butcher, we started looking into how we could compete globally. So we got on board, and for the first time, it was supposed to be 2020, ended up, stupid COVID, ended up getting 2022 in Sacramento, California. So it was the very first time that Canada ever had a team to be represented on the world stage. So what the World Butcher Challenge is, 6 people, 2 people being breakers, 2 people being middle cutters, and 2 people being finishers, have 3 hours and 15 minutes to complete from full carcass, half a beef, half a pig, a whole lamb, and 5 chickens, from full carcass to full value-added retail display, being marked on right down to how clean you are, your presentation, your value, your theme, and your knowledge of your product. So we went into this competition super excited, and we were very, very, very well prepared, but we weren't prepared for the caliber of butchering that we saw globally. We didn't come out of the competition as well as we had hoped. We didn't finish last, but we certainly got our eyes opened, and I loved every single minute of it because I came away with learning. So as far as I was concerned, I won. Our next one, 2025 in Paris, France, is going to be a total of 17 different countries, the same rules. So that'll be 17 sides of beef, 17 sides of pork, 17 lambs, 17 times 5 roasting chickens for every country. The wonderful thing about this is they take all of the product from that and it goes to global food banks. California took all that meat and fed people all over the state with it. There. Leg of lamb, saddle of lamb, rack of lamb. So the saddle would be traditionally split right down the middle. We're going to do something a little bit different with that, but. And here we have the shoulder. Probably one of the best, most underrated pieces of the lamb. So when Wahab was talking earlier today about looking at the lamb front on, I love the fact that he was looking at the brisket. I love that. Even when I'm buying beef, which I've bought in the ring or right from a farmer in direct, I look at the waggle. I look at how much is there. That's a good telltale of the whole animal, as well as the feet. I wholeheartedly agree with that. the environment that it was raised in. But you can really tell how much fat is on this lamb and how gorgeous it is. A lot of it's been peeled off here, but you get the whole idea that that's going to be a telltale of what's going to be in the rest of the animal. So we're going to just quickly take all the bone out of this, and I'm going to make a couple of boneless lamb shoulders. If you guys have any questions about anything, please just holler at me. I'm open to anything you have to say. So once we get inside the middle of this, you can tell that the color of this lamb is wonderful. It looks beautiful and bright. It almost has, it's definitely more pink. The contrast of color is good because when you're displaying multiple proteins in one counter, you like to be able to have one defining fact between one product and the next. So this beautiful color looks similar to veal, where the beef is definitely going to be a little bit more red, and pork, obviously, a variety of colors. You are perfectly welcome to do it at home. I think that in the sake of time management, it would probably be done a lot faster and with a better yield at a butcher shop. There would be no reason whatsoever why you couldn't do anything like this at home. And one of the neat things about Europe as opposed to North America is how they would probably do it at home themselves. And they would take this bone in my right, which I've purposely left a decent amount of meat on. And it's not garbage. It's not garbage by any means. Not only could you braise that, make a wonderful meat sauce, you could make soups, you could make stocks. There's 1,000 different things you could do with this. So the answer to your question is 100% yes. It's as long as you're going to use the whole thing, you would probably get a little bit more meat left on this than your butcher would. But it's going to be equally as value if you do it at home if you're going to use the whole thing. So there, we have both of our shoulders. That's our center, our rack, and our leg. So over here, we have the other half of lamb. You can market this in 1,000 different ways. And when there's a big difference between a retail butcher and then somebody who's butchering product for, say, you guys have sold something directly to the public and it's being processed at a licensed abattoir, they do a good job. They do it very, very quick. So one of the things that we pride ourselves in a retail butcher shop is eye appeals, buy appeal. And if it doesn't look good, no one's going to buy it. So we need to take this, we need to take that extra step. We need to give it some love. So basically what would happen traditionally at an abattoir, they would cut this all up. You would wrap it. It would be amazing. But all the beautiful frilly stuff would be left to the people at home. The retail butcher shop that appeals to people in a different way would take all of this product and just make it basically a one-pot meal, which has been very trendy in a lot of stores lately. Smoking is huge. A lot of people like doing things with a smoker. That's a piece of the boneless lamb neck. You could use that to make a ragu. You could render that down to make a soup or a stew or just about anything you would want out of it. Now, this sharpening steel is something I get asked about quite a bit too. I will keep a knife sharp, but it will not make a knife sharp. If you could imagine an invisible microscopic edge, and after a bit of use, it starts to roll one way or the other, the sharpening steel will bring it back. But if that edge isn't there, it's not coming back. One of my favorite pieces ever. Lamb shanks, beautiful. Love that. A lot of questions that you guys probably get consumer related as well is I see the stamp on my roasts. All these wonderful ones, and quite often you'll see, well, this one was done at a federal, but if you see them done at a provincial plant, your local small abattoir, you'll have a blue stamp on there that says Ontario approved, and then it'll have the plant number of where it was processed. I get a lot of questions from people saying, what is that? Can I have that? But you can easily tell them that it's just a all vegetable base ink and there's nothing, it's perfectly fine. So we're going to remove all the fat and glands out of the center of this. Now, this is the part in the lamb competition they were talking about earlier, where your lamb will yield. As a retail butcher, this is absolutely gorgeous because I got lots of meat in here, a little bit of marble, not a whole heck of a lot. Beautiful fat cover, wonderfully nice white color to it, but not enough, because if I've got, sorry, not too much is what I meant to say. If there's too much, I'm going to end up putting all that in the bone can, and that doesn't make anybody any money. I prefer myself to purchase lambs farm direct. I have a couple of people near me that grow some wonderful lambs. I ship them right directly to my local slaughterhouse, and then they come to me under refrigeration within a couple of days. And then once they've got a couple of days of age, drying off and just aging nicely in the cooler, they're perfect for the counter. My ideal lamb carcass for breaking or for a counter is a carcass weight of 45, 50 pounds, much like the large lambs in the category that was up there today. Even looking at them live, I thought they were all wonderful. They were very, very nice. Looking at them hanging is completely different. Nice flat back, squared body, beautiful shoulders. One of the things from my experience working in an abattoir, and this goes for meat as a whole, it's building a relationship from the customer right through to the farmer and every step in between. One of the things that I look for in purchasing lamb is it being shipped to a place that's going to do a good, ethical, clean, quality job. What kind of people work there? How long is it going to be in the barn? How's it going to be treated when it is there? There's a lot of factors in there that I've seen that are very important to the product. It's very important to the consumer. And one of the things that you guys all know this already, you can sell the story. You can sell the fact that this lamb was raised as something you would happily consume yourself. And that to me is very, very important. So the quality of the lamb is there, the place that processes it, but moreover, what's the end result here? Is this just some factory thing that, you know, people just don't care about? No, that's not the case, especially with Ontario lamb. So that to me is extremely important as well. Just going to square the end off this a little bit. And we've got some wonderful, wonderful trim. Now in my store, quite often I'll make a variety of different sausages. We'll do a merguez sausage. We do a lamb with a touch of rosemary. We've got all different kinds of varieties of stuff in there. But that is also a different way of doing value added, using that lamb trim to the best of our ability. So we have really nice little boneless shoulder here. Just going to put a couple of strings on this. One of the rules about tying, well, there's a lot of rules. As a consumer, one of the rules when you are carving a roast that has been properly butchered, you will always cut the roast the same direction the strings are tied. So if it's tied like this, you're going to carve it like this. You're not going to start carving like that. That's one of the reasons it's on there traditionally. The other reason is to give it nice composure and just eye appeal as well. Because this is boned out and we've removed a lot of the undesirables, the fat, the glands, all the things we don't necessarily wish to have in there for dinner, we'll just roll this back up and give it a little bit of tying on the outside. They don't always work. The glove, the chainmail glove is required when competing. 99% of butchers don't wear them because they're hard to clean. They're very, very hard to clean. It doesn't give you the real true grip. That being said, the outcome of not wearing one sometimes is just terrible. But we learn. So there you have this nice, beautiful, see, you've got lots of marble in the middle of this, but lots of lean, excellent meat. All day long, I would throw that in a slow cooker and make an absolutely wonderful meal out of that. That's just one. The other one is still right here. So yes, we started with, ended with. So obviously, somebody who knows what they're doing in any store would be able to take something that's not necessarily eye appealing and make it something that you would want to take home and feed your family. What I'll do actually is I'll put those side by each. There you have the beginning and the end. In the UK, I have a lot of customers that are very British and they want a lamb breast. And I've even seen a lot of people do something completely different with this lamb breast or this lamb flank. Is boned and rolled. So it's going to look kind of neat when I'm all done. But at the same time, it's something that people would look at it and say, well, that's cool. What the heck do I do with that? So once again, being in that forefront of dealing with customers, I can help people. I can say, this is what it is. This is your ideal cooking method. This is what you would serve it with. And this is what would be perfect to make you a happy family. This piece is generally just boned out or chopped up bone in for a lot of, say, curry or something of that nature. But one of the popular things is to bone it out and then roll it up. We're just going to get all the bone out there. We got a little bit of silver skin on the outside here. Just pull that off. This also is something that's really popular with people who like to do lots of smoking. There, we'll just get that bit off there. It's a little bit like shoe leather, that stuff, when it's all done. So what we're going to do here, so we're going to square this up as a nice piece. This piece right here is actually your flank steak. I would use that as a stir fry. I would use that just as lamb stew. We take a lot of pieces in our store and we make meat pies. We have just over 21 different varieties of meat pies in our store. And one of my favorites definitely is the lamb. And I traditionally would use the lamb shoulder. I'll bone it out, take all the undesirables out of the middle of it, dice it up in a beautiful little 3/4 inch cubes, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of lamb rub on the outside, and I roast it in an oven so that it's all nice and brown, borderline burnt. Put it in a pot and then simmer it for a few hours. And when it's almost done, I add 2 cans of beer from my local brewery. It's a lamb and lager meat pie. So we take that once it's simmered, make a little bit of a thin gravy out of it, and it probably makes one of the best meat pies you've ever had. I love that one. So we have our breast of lamb or our lamb flank. And this one here, just for eye appealing purposes, I just have a little bit of a bread stuffing here, nothing crazy. I would use something, a wild rice and mushroom, anything that you get. This is a nice bread stuffing. It's very good. I find it very basic. If you wish to add fruit, you can add nuts to it. It's just your traditional poultry stuffing. So we're going to take that and then we're going to just kind of roll it up like this. Yes. Traditionally, we make all of our stuffings. It is available in a retail package. If I do buy the retail package, like I said, it's very basic. I take it and then I put my spin on it. head. Skewers, they're in here somewhere. Anyhow, we'll just tie this up and give you the basic idea. What I would traditionally do with this is skewer it. And then each skewer would be a medallion, making our strings evenly spaced, knots all in a row, tight, not too tight, snug enough you can't quite get your finger of it, but not cutting the meat as we're doing it. One of the things that I give new students when they come in is a little bit of homework when they want to learn how to tie. I give them a ball of string and an empty bottle of wine. And I say, go home and fill that wine bottle with string. And when you come back, you'll probably have it perfected. So to give you the rough idea here. Just something a little bit different. So again, I will do traditional value-added finished product. Amazing question. When somebody comes to me and they have a question, the very first rebuttal I have is, do you have a meat thermometer? Because anybody who's cooking anything ever needs a meat thermometer. It is the most fail-proof way ever of taking all of the guesswork out of everything. So yes, if you're going to braise a lamb shoulder, if you're going to do it, say, for example, on a smoker, I'd want to get a nice dark crust on the outside of this. That would also be helped with the rub that you put on the outside of it, especially if you have a high sugar content. If you're using brown sugar in your rum, it's going to caramelize on the outside. It's going to be gorgeous. If you're going to smoke it, get that flavor on the outside, get that caramelization, wrap it up, leave it on your smoker and let your internal temperature come up to close to 200, 204. It's going to come off after that and you're going to let it rest because that is also very important. And then it's just going to fall apart beautifully. And then you can season it however you want, and you can add all this wonderful stuff to it once it's all done. Now, when you're getting into your leg of lamb and you're doing a nice roast on that and you want it to come out a little bit pink, your meat thermometer is key. You want to bring the product out of the oven 5 to 7 degrees before your desired level of doneness. So if you wish to have a leg of lamb and you wish to have a nice little bit of pink in there, so you'd want to have a finished temperature of 147 maybe, you'd get it out of the oven at about 140, 142. Set it down, let it coast, let it set up. I would rather eat a cold leg of lamb than I would I'd rather eat a cold leg of lamb than I would an overcooked leg of lamb. So if you bring this out of the oven and you're like, oh, geez, I'm 20 minutes ahead of time, just leave it there. Put a piece of foil over, tea towel, let it set up, get the rest of your dinner ready. When everything else is done, carve your protein, put it on a platter, away you go. You'll be surprised how well that'll hold its temperature. So here we have my favorite. Well, my favorite. Love the traditional rack of lamb. The saddle of lamb on our bandsaw, we would go right down the center of the spine. You can kind of see here underneath the fat, the center of the spine. I'm just going to thin this out just a little bit. Going back to that conversation earlier about too much fat. The secret at a good retail store is to take off the right amount so that it's not wasty, and leaving the right amount on there so that you have moisture and flavor of your finished product. Because everything that you throw out is not money made. So one of the things that I would hope a lot of people do here is enjoy their own product. Because one of the most important things about selling good product is knowing good product. Nothing sells good product like good product. And if you eat it and you understand it and you enjoy it, you'll have 10 times more luck with your final product and your consumer as well. So traditionally with the bandsaw, we would split this right down the center, and then I would split each lamb chop by hand at each vertebrae. Basically, you're going to end up with the gorgeous little baby T-bone steaks. This time of year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, one of my favorite things to do is to take this whole saddle and create what we like to call a noisette. So right down the center, we're going to just cut the tenderloins out, but not all the way out. This is a little bit tricky because this is the most expensive part of the lamb, and you really don't want to mess this part up. So we're going to take the tenderloin there and fold it back. We're going to take the other one out of the other side, and we're going to fold that one back, and we're going to expose the sides of the vertebrae right here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see all the vertebrae right here are all nicely exposed all the way around. So the tenderloin's still there, still attached. Now I can see those. So I'm going to go underneath them and come back. Right up to the center of the vertebrae and around the loin, following the bone as best I can to get as much meat off of it as we can. Just takes a little bit of time just to make sure you don't mess up your yield. In my store particularly, I absolutely love using seasonal ingredients for my value added. Right now we have apples in peak season, so as our onions for that matter, and I get beautiful red onions, lots of nice local apples. And with that stuffing I make, we put onions and apples and roll that up inside of a beautiful pork loin because it's traditional. It's seasonal. It's just wonderful. And it takes something to the next level. It just makes it that much better. One of the things that are in season right about now is leek. And I love leeks. It's got that beautiful onion flavor, but it's got the versatility of so many other things. But more importantly, I like the shape of it there. So we got the whole vertebrae out as a whole piece. Wonderful. So there, we got the whole vertebrae to the back of the lamb. You can kind of see, if you happen to come up here close, you can see little white spots. That's traditionally where you would cut your lamb chops, right at each spot. So there you get a rough idea. Now, I've already thinned out a lot of the fat on the back of this. I've got those tenderloins wonderfully resting in the middle. We have a little bit of fat on there, but just enough to maintain the moisture. Just for giggles, we're going to add feta cheese and spinach. Oh, love, love, love the color. The beautiful saltiness of the feta is amazing. I did wash this before I came. I'm just going to kind of take the one outside layer off. And we're going to lay that right there like so. And we are going to create it so that that leek ideally lays right in the center of it, wrapped by all that feta cheese and spinach. A lot of big flavors going on there with that beautiful lamb. Boring old white string. No, this gets the fancy string. Approximately $38, $40 a pound by the time you're all done. Brings me to another point. If it's $40 a pound and it weighs 8 ounces and it costs you $20 and it's 100% edible, and something costs you $28, $29 a pound and it's only 60, 70% edible, the end result's the same. A lot of the work has been done for you. The enjoyment factor is going to be much higher. So it's an amazing point. That kind of goes for a lot of meat in general. Your retail butcher shop. I purchase for beef AAA or Prime. Prime is the top 2% of beef killed. I loved that video today on grading. To be honest with you, I learned a lot about it. I didn't know a whole bunch about that. I appreciate good lamb and I love good lamb, and I wasn't really so in depth on the actual grading of it. That is imperative that for me, I'm going to go after that best lamb. I'm going to go after the best beef. I'm going to go after the best pork, because I'm only doing one thing. And if I don't do it right, I'm done. So when people kind of take the stigma of a butcher shop being expensive, I would hope they are, because they're selling a better product. That being said, if you're not happy with it, there should be a face to go back to. Yes. Scotch broth, very popular. To braise them in a lamb, braise meat, lamb bones, neck bones, even the rib bones that I kept here, all of these, get all the meat off of it. You could easily make a beautiful ragu. You could do stuffed, just about stuffed anything you would want to. So one of the trending things for butcher shops the last couple of years has been Thor's hammer. If you guys have seen, it's a full beef shank like this, and then they French the top of it and it looks like Thor's hammer, and then you put it on a smoker for like 3 days and then you eat it. This kind of replicates the same concept where you get the same idea. It's trendy, it's eye appeal, it looks really neat in your counter. So we're going to keep all that wonderful lamb trim. Right down the middle. If I was doing this in my store, there's a solid chance I would probably wrap it in saran wrap, let it set up all night, let it gather a bit of a memory, just so that it doesn't drag. That is £1.25. Easily, being the richness of the lamb and everything that's in there, easily 4 people. Easy 4 people. 780 grams. There's 454 grams in a pound. So yeah, a little over £1.5 pounds. So there, that's just a different spin on something completely different than your traditional lamb chop. With the Ontario's Finest Butcher, which just completed last weekend, that is an annual event. I was really, really lucky to be able to judge this year's event in the preliminary rounds. I love that all these young butchers are getting out there and they're trying their hand at something new and something different, and doing it in front of a group of people and their peers, getting out of their comfort zone and really just trying something different, trying to bring to light for butchers what chefs have had for a long time. And it's awesome. Like, I have a lot of great friends who are chefs, but at the same time, we just kind of need that spotlight for a little bit to bring a little bit of exposure to the world of butchering. I grew up on a farm. It was actually a dairy operation. I have a full appreciation for farming. I love it. I have a lot of good friends who are still farmers as well. And when in a butcher shop, like I said, dealing with the public, and people come in and they look at me and they say, "Why is that $40? Well, let me explain to you how many people cared, loved, and devoted their entire life into making that not just dinner, but something that you can show to your family and appreciate. And if you can actually get the opportunity to get in the front line and tell people, just, $40. No, I put my heart and soul, my whole life into that. It's not just a hunk of meat. It goes for butchering for me. I'm ridiculously passionate about it. Not only is it my career, but it's my hobby. Drives my family nuts. But we eat well. So we have our rack of lamb here. And I'm just going to fold the cap back on the rack of lamb just a little bit down to the eye, not quite to the eye, exposing about 3-4 inches of these wonderful lamb bones. Got a little bit of the shoulder blade bone here, which we're just going to pop out right quick. In a traditional restaurant, you see a rack of lamb on the menu. I'm going to say anywhere 50 to 60 bucks at a good restaurant. It would only be 3. So that would be 3 servings at a restaurant. If I was having dinner at my house, I would probably allow, depending on who was coming, 3 ribs per person. One of the things you can do with a traditional rack of lamb to kind of take that extra level, once again, is we're just going to kind of thin out a bit of this beautiful fat on the back. That's where a lot of the strong flavor comes from as well. So if you're not so big on that stronger part of the flavor, then that's good to kind of remove. Okay, so we've got this all done. I'm going to fold that cap back. Now, Frenching chops is probably been invented by a chef because it's a giant pain. But it looks incredible when it's done. One of the things judging all of competitions being judged and judging is the cleanliness of the bones that you've done. So we just remove all this meat in the middle, and that is not garbage by any means. We do, like I mentioned earlier, we do a whole bunch of lamb sausages, varieties of flavors. Lamb burgers are incredibly popular and really, really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here like this. I'm going to grab the back side of the bone, my thumb. And we'll work our way all the way down the bone with this sharp part of my blade. And I'm not going to do all of these because it would take all the rest of the morning, but I'm just going to do about 3 on the end here, and I'll show you what they're looking for in the judging of Frenched bones. There's 1,000 different methods that I've seen people trying to do this. The only one to me that works properly is just brute muscle. Just take a good sharp knife, French the bone like that. Here we are. So you can see, if you get the chance to look at this display later on, you'll see that some of the bones are just absolutely clean. Now, that is important because it looks good. It's a sign of skill. And it's also, when you cook it, it will not burn. It will stay nice and clean as you are cooking those up. I don't have a scraper. So there. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different with this now as well. We're going to focus again on the value added product. This one here is one of the most popular ones that I've seen with this is root vegetables, even peppers, but lots of all kinds of root vegetables as well. And in the middle of it, black pudding. Not everybody's cup of tea, but has a very nice, bold flavor that goes very well with it. So now we take that cap, we've got that all folded over lovely like. And there's a couple options of this that we can leave as a little roast, or you can do your little Frenched lollipops, lamb chop lollipops, which are really popular with people lately as well, especially when the grilling season is high. That's a big demand. Getting a little warm, doesn't like that, but. So with your beautiful rack of lamb, with the folded over cap, the bit of stuffing in the middle of whatever kind you wish to have. Just something a little bit different. I just use that one again. Bit of simplicity. But there we have a basic rack of lamb and then our value added rack of lamb. Okay, leg of lamb. This one can go 1,000 different directions. And this was one of the pieces used this past weekend in the Ontario's Finest Butcher finals. They had 45 minutes to complete 3 proteins that they didn't know anything about until 5 minutes before the competition. And this is what they had to do with one of them was the leg of lamb. So I'm going to remove the shank end. Cut that off right there. It's again, wonderful braising meal. It's absolutely fantastic. We're just going to remove a little bit of the excess fat. Once again, not too much. All the undesirables on the outside. We'll take the H bone or the hip bone right out of this one. If I was doing this in my counter, this would be what I would remove because it makes it a lot easier for people at home. If I was to display a bone-in leg of lamb and somebody would want it boneless, I would happily just weigh in price and then take the bone out for them as a service because that makes them happy. And a happy consumer is a returning consumer. There. So we got all the bone out as clean as we possibly could. Tie up this little bit of yucky on the end. And here we have the other end of the butt tender. So the leg of lamb. We have the little piece of the tenderloin. This is the top sirloin done with a long cut leg of lamb. Or if we were to cut it off here, we could cut some beautiful chump chops, as they would refer to them in the UK, or top butt lamb chops. And you'd have an absolutely gorgeous leg of lamb. One of the things that's in the summertime when I buy whole lambs for my store is I can sell lamb chops, I can sell lamb wraps, and I can use all this trim to make all this beautiful barbecue stuff. But if I was to cut these at 1.5 inches and tell people to go home and throw it on the barbecue, unbelievable. It's fantastic. And they absolutely love that. So this one here, I'm going to just remove the top sirloin section of it there. So that is in reference to this leg of lamb here. Now, this is the shortcut leg of lamb, and we are going to remove the primal muscles off of this, starting with the inside round. We're going to go in between the muscles, seaming everything out, and ideally not cutting into the muscle beside it. Good butchering is the practice of separating muscles without destroying them, knowing where they are, how to find them efficiently, quickly, and not harming yourself in the process. So we're going to get that whole femur bone right out of the other end of that leg of lamb like so. We don't want to throw any of that wonderful lamb out. So this piece here is the inside round. We have your eye of the round right here. Right beside the eye of the round, there's a great big piece of fat and gristle that we like to take out. Little piece of bone here at the end of the sirloin tip. And I'm going to separate those muscles now. And that would be perfect to use for lamb kebab, lamb satay, very nice lamb stew, anything of that nature. There. And then a little bit of that silver. There we go. With this one here, what we'll do, a lamb satay is very popular around the holidays. For people who like to get a little bit swanky at a Christmas party, make up a beautiful, beautiful little marinade. You take these very nice thin little slices of lamb like this. The inside is the largest solid muscle in the whole animal. It's very nice. It's very lean. I'm going to slice it nice and thin, like so. If you were to marinate something like that, weave it on a stick so that it just sits on your stick with a little bit of a weave on there, just nice big one, and put it at one end. Give it a little quick grill, almost like a spadini. It's very, very, very good. Sky's the limit for that one. One of the neat ones that I had was done with coffee and berry. So they actually used espresso grounds in a marinade and used a bit of a berry paste to it. That one was absolutely, excuse me, absolutely fantastic. You could go as simple as a Slovakia. When you're doing something like this, one of the neat things for me is just a little bit of salt and pepper and actually get to enjoy the beautiful lamb flavor. You don't necessarily need to kill it with anything. The beautifulness is in the simplicity of it. So there, we have all of the major pieces, the little bit of trim left over. So for the most part, we've got a little bit of bone here. We've used pretty much the whole lamb. So here we have the shoulder. Whole section, what we've turned it into. We've got our breast or brisket, I've turned it into. We've got our loin, and we've got our rack. And our leg broke down into other muscles, and another piece of shank, which is wonderful for braising. A little bit of trim off the side, but very, very minimal. So I think we've actually, for the most part, probably extracted the maximum amount of value and yield that we can out of that lamb. Obviously, there's a lot more fun to be had with it. If we could, this to me, in after hours in my shop with something like this, and I just kind of turn the radio off and there's nobody around and the phone's not there, and I kind of get to play around with this and enjoy some creativity. That's just absolutely what I love the most. So that's basically the whole lamb broke down into primals and a little bit of value added stuff there. That's about all that I have to say, other than the fact that usually they come with a pluck. The liver is amazing. It's definitely marketable. When I'm displaying products such as bone-in chops or anything like this, I will put them in the counter with the kidneys. Gone. People love that kind of stuff. They put kidney in a stew instead of something like that. And then whole lamb and half lamb. Quite often I get people come in and they love lamb and they want to buy a whole bunch. And we do what we call a C cut. Someone come in and they will see it being cut and they absolutely love it. They can stand right here and I can bring them a piece and say, this is what it is. This is what we can do. And we'll create something that's perfect for their environment. And that to me is what I love the most about butchering. This is amazing. Thank you guys very much. Once again, thank you for the best product. Yes. There's a very broad range in pricing, middles and ends. Just getting to that time, it's not necessarily lamb, but that's all protein in general, middles and ends. I can purchase whole animal, and in the summertime, obviously, middle meat's where the money is. You're gonna get all your grilling products and so on and so forth. But the ability to take a good butcher into a great butcher is take that stuff that nobody wants and put it into something you can. Same thing with a chef. This arguably is probably one of the toughest pieces of meats toughest piece of meat in the whole lamb, but a chef will be able to make this in probably one of the best meals you've ever had. So the pricing is, in my opinion, for the amount of work put into it, it's hard for farmers. I know, I'm 100% aware of that, but this is where the key to making money for me is the value added. It's the secret to making a good butcher, a great butcher, is just value added, the ability to talk to people. Being able to use this other product here that's probably a little bit less expensive and turn it into something like a burger or a sausage, and then being able to charge for it in a manner that it's going to actually make us and you money. So the pricing is very, very important, where I take at the end of the day where I've got the radio off and the phone off and I'm sitting there by myself and I cut a whole lamb and I do all this and I say, this is what this lamb cost me. This is what I've turned it into. And I need to be able to have that peace and quiet and mind focus in order to do that, because it's hard. But you have to do it all the time in order to maintain the proper budget or proper profit margin as well. Different knives. Well, I'm very partial to this particular brand. Their marketing is wonderful. It's actually called F. Dick. It's Freuder Dick. They actually have t-shirts that say I heart Dick, but tough sell. This is a German knife. These ones have actually, this is the one that sponsored Team Canada. I'm exceptionally happy with these. I love them a lot. They are all stainless. I have a 5-inch boning knife, a 6-inch boning knife, mainly for beef, an 8-inch breaking knife, 12-inch steak knife, and then my personal favorite. This is just an absolutely sexy knife. I love it. It is super, super sharp. It's borderline cleaver, and this will go right through the bone and everything, no problem whatsoever. As far as sharpening goes, I do all my own. I do it almost every day. I teach people who work for me how to sharpen their own knives, because not everybody likes it the same. Some people like a little bit pointier, some not so much, different kind of edge. This particular knife, if you can see on it, it's got a little bit of a bevel in it. Some people like those little dots. They offset on either side. Makes for a lighter steel, but the meat doesn't stick to it and it falls off. That's pretty much all there is to it. This one I've had for about 4 months. I probably have about another 2 out of it. I use it all day, every day. That would be a retail $60, $70 knife. This one here is about $350. So it's a little bit different, but that's not this is a serious knife. This is a big deal. This one for slicing, probably maybe about a $200 knife roughly. That's great for people to have. Some people like to have that in their house. This one for me, for household use, is probably perfect. You could use it to slice the leg. It's big enough. You could use it to cut small things. But if you have a full beef brisket or anything else on your table that requires a big knife, that's your perfect all-around knife right there. One other knife that I have that I didn't bring today is a turning knife. Everybody knows what a paring knife looks like. Well, a turning knife actually has a sharp edge on the inside of the hook, and it's really, really good to grab those bones and French them, because it's got a little bit of a hook on it. But I couldn't take it today, because if I took it away from the shop, the guys would kill me, because they're probably using it. So anybody have anything else? No, not at all. Even people bring me a serrated knife and they say, can you sharpen this? No. There is a specific little tool. It's great for bread, but that's about it. We don't use serrated for anything. Oh, yes. Yeah. One of the things too for me is I keep a display of knives on the top of the table. Customers ask me that. What do you use? Where can I get one? Right here. The only serrated knife I would use would be this.
All right, folks. Brent, thank you so much.
I'm
It's been
happy.
incredible. And everyone, please join us in thanking him.
Thank you.